Welcome everybody to Behind the Patreon once again. Andrew here, and with me is Mike.
Hey everybody.
So this week we are going to do our Genesis memories. We have done other episodes on other systems, but this week is Genesis memories and our top 3 with an honorable mention. So that's our format. I think you have a little bit more of a history with the Genesis than I do, Mike.
Yeah, probably. So obviously, I think anybody who's been listening knows that I was very much an arcade kid. And so Sega is the name. That's the name for me. You know, those games that I was playing in the arcade, I wanted to see them come home. And that was a major factor in my interest in the Sega Master System. And that would be a major factor for the Genesis as well. I'm not sure... I can't, it's hard to tell exactly when things happened as a kid. They kind of blur together. I could go back and look at the years and say like, okay, 89 this, 90 that. But everything just kind of blurred as a kid. And I can say that when the Genesis came along, everything else just looked so archaic in comparison to me. It really blew my mind. I was at the arcades. I was playing all those games like Altered Beast, right? Altered Beast was the pack-in game to launch with the Genesis. And I can still remember seeing a commercial for it, and it was an odd commercial, probably like a 30-second spot, not too long, but it definitely stayed with me through all these years because it's pretty goofy. There's like all these kids playing an NES, and it's like gray and covered in stone or something like that. And then someone sees in the distance there's a Genesis playing Altered Beast, and it like kind of like awakened to color or something. And that's very much how it felt for me. It was just like, oh my God, thank you for existing, Genesis. And once I saw that running, and I mean, to me, Altered Beast looked arcade perfect. And the funny thing is, I've gone back to it and I've played the arcade version again and been like, you know what, I actually missed the sort of the color banding that they used for the sky in the beginning of the Genesis version. And I think I in the end, I think I like the Genesis version better than I like the arcade version. But that's also because I spent more time with it.
Right.
But yeah, it was a big shift. It was like you had Atari to NES and Sega Master System was a huge leap. I mean, it was just like Atari was almost like this placeholder. Like, what are we really doing here, guys? Then the 8-bit systems come along and it's like, oh man, this is pretty cool. and then the 16-bit comes along with the Genesis, and it's just like, goodbye to everything else. This is amazing. I can't even believe this. This is like an arcade in my home.
It came out before the NES, right?
Not the Genesis.
Oh yeah, that's never mind.
The NES
before the Super
NES
Nintendo.
was like 1983 hardware for Japan, right? So it was already out of date when it released there, because Nintendo always does their, like, the hardware has to be profitable. By the time America got it, I think it was 85. So it was already like maybe 4-year-old technology. The Genesis, though, that felt cutting edge at the time. Absolutely. And it really holds up a lot of it. Like, you go back to that system and it's just like, there's some impressive stuff here. Definitely has some flaws. We'll get into that. But, yeah, it just felt like that was the leap. That 8 to 16-bit leap. There was nothing else like it ever again for me. There really wasn't. I mean, things were impressive. Things got better. But like that leap from 8 to 16 was just like, we are where I want to be now.
That's awesome, man. Okay, so as I said before, my household and the entire fucking everybody I knew, not just neighborhood, everyone was a Nintendo household for the most part.
Yeah.
And I remember we got our Genesis at Toys R Us. I remember it was like laying down on the floor, like, you had the games with you pull the little card, the little paper card, the paper slip.
Oh, yeah, the paper thing. Yep.
Yeah, so the paper slips are up on the wall, but the system itself actually was on just like right there on the bottom. for you to pick up.
Yeah, that's surprising.
It's
I
a
don't
little weird,
remember
but
how that worked.
But it was like later in its life. Like we must have gotten it, God, man, like 92, or it was after the Super Nintendo for sure. 93 maybe, because I remember we got like if my memory serves me correctly, it was like $90.
So yeah, that was definitely later.
Yeah.
What did it come packed with, and what type of system was it? Because there were 3 models, I think, of the Genesis.
It was that one with like a bit like the UFO dome.
Oh no, that's original model then. That's the Model 1.
It wasn't a Genesis 2. It was before that, and it came packed with Sonic 1. And like I had been playing Mario for years, my long tenure as a gamer at that point. But so to play Sonic was a real treat, that was new to me. I was well aware of Sonic, but I just hadn't actually played it yet. Maybe at the demo kiosk thing in Toys R Us or something, but that's it. So that's like the very dead beginning, and it was just Sonic. Maybe we rented games for a while. I honestly couldn't tell you what our second Genesis game was, but the first one was definitely Sonic, which was great. Loved it. It kind of delivered what it promised. And I'm the oldest brother. So okay, let me back up. This timeline is trying to get my timeline right.
Right. This is the thing, right? It's all a little hazy because we were kids then. It's not your sense of progression is not quite the same.
So when looking back on it and looking at all the reviews and the podcasts and people talking about it, the general consensus from most people is that Super Nintendo was ultimately better than the Genesis. No matter, I know maybe Mike, you're different, but it seems from what I gather anyway, the general consensus is Super Nintendo was number 1. And so that's what I thought. I always thought, looking back, like the reviews later on in life, I think skewed how I looked at my own memories. Because one time I talked to my mom like 2 or 3 years ago, and she said, "Oh yeah, you were a Sega kid." And I was like, God, you're right. Because I was the one with the 32X and the Sega CD.
Oh,
and
wow,
I had the whole thing. So I had this whole deal, and I love my Saturn too. So like, I think the magazines and stuff kind of skewed my memories. Although I loved Super Nintendo as well. I think some of that marketing, because I'm the oldest brother, and the marketing worked 100%. It was a black system. It was darker. It was a little bit more adult, and some other reasons we'll get to in our list in a minute.
I love the look of the original model Genesis. I absolutely love it. And for the record, I think Genesis is a better name than Mega Drive.
I'm against you on that one. I like Mega Drive. I think Mega Drive sounds cool.
No, I love the way the word Genesis looks compared to Mega Drive. It just everything about it.
I remember thinking, why are they calling it Genesis? They're supposed to be the best thing ever, not the beginning. This is the latest thing, not the beginning. I remember kind of having a problem with the name. But yeah, the artwork was also cool. And like looking back on it too, like I think the box art in general was kind of better on Genesis.
So this is something that I really felt very strongly about with both the Master System and the Genesis. I absolutely love the grid. The grid.
I don't like the grid. I'm talking about Genesis, not Master System.
Well, that's the thing. The Genesis had a grid too. The Genesis grid was black with gray lines.
It didn't last that long though.
It basically was like the inverted form of the Master System.
It looks like a kitchen tablecloth.
I loved how they did the minimal illustrations on the Sega Master System with the grid, and then when they went to the Genesis, they had the pretty large illustrations with that black grid that kind of disappeared in the background, but gave it this uniform look. And so when all those cartridges had that same look, I would really look forward to seeing how they used that space for the artwork. And I was really disappointed when they started making the shift away from the plastic cases. And had like the red Genesis band and had cardboard boxes on some of them. It was a real disappointment for me to see that they lost the uniformity in design. eventually.
I gotta disagree, man. I like the red band. Maybe the clamshell's cool. You could have both, but the red band plus the clamshell. But to me, the color started to pop more or something. They were brighter. The box art was brighter generally, so I like that. And plus, like, I think in general, I kind of like more full art. Like one time I posted something about Sonic 1 or 2. You know how the Japanese version, or it's 3. Japanese cover art is like kind of minimalistic, kind of 2D looking shapes and stuff in the background, and like kind of more minimalist, abstract almost.
I know the first one had like very 90s.
Maybe it's that one.
90s snack bar tablecloth or like coffee cup kind of design.
Then you look at
with like teal and pink and weird random abstract shapes. Like a Saved by the Bell wallpaper. Yeah,
the American one for Sonic 3 maybe was just really bright, colorful, great art. And I posted like, this is clearly better. Usually the Japanese art is better. But then some of my friends were like, no, I like the Japanese one more. And I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, you know, I don't know what the art looks like for the Japanese Sonic 2 or 3. I only remember seeing Sonic 1.
One of them is like pretty minimal. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, but yeah, it was a great system. I had a lot of memories with it all the way up to the very late releases with Vector Man and shit. There was Vector Man 2 as well. Vector Man 1 was already a late release.
Yeah.
And Virtual Fighter one of the Virtual Fighters is on Genesis as a late release.
Yeah, this is a funny thing because like they've done all these Genesis collections through the years, and this is a wonderful thing for Sega. Like, it's so rare to see any other companies just being like, "Here's our games, here are our history," you know, right? Like, take this, play this. I love that, and it's not often enough. It's very rare you see like Sega and Capcom continually make their older stuff available, and the other companies just kind of scattershot. It's erratic. You might get a little release here and there, and it's, you know, you're happy when you do, but it's just
Namco did it on
strange.
PS1 and 2, I believe, back in the day.
Yeah,
there were Namco collections on those things.
Yeah, and I actually bought one of them on Switch recently because you could play Pac-Man with the flip grip, nice vertical thing. And
nice. Do you have
and
the
they
flip
had
grip?
Splatterhouse. Yeah.
Damn, that's nice.
Which is, it's funny because when I saw that OLED model come along, I was like, well, you know, I have no reason to do that because I don't really play in portable mode. But then I thought, oh, that might be nice with the flip grip, but it doesn't work with the current model of flip grip, and I don't think they've updated the flip grip to accommodate the OLED model yet. That's another story.
That's cool. I would like to play some games on the flip grip. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's nice. There's a lot, and Cave is putting out some shooters on there, so it's cool.
That's nice, man. That's nice.
I'd like to see a Genesis shooter like Truxton show up on there. I would love that.
It'd be sick if all that shit was on there. Yeah.
But it's funny, you mentioned like Vector Man and the late life of the Genesis, and you were talking before about the Super Nintendo, the general consensus that it was better. And that's definitely what happened for me. Like, the Genesis was there hitting really hard right away. Like, these are beautiful, amazing games. This 16-bit stuff is fantastic. And the sound was really good for those games. Eventually, though, things like, and this is, you know, me being an arcade kid, Capcom was also huge. And when I didn't get the support for Final Fight, that was like, okay, well, I need a Super Nintendo now. So what do I do? That's it. Let's start planning out birthday Christmas here.
I think I'm a two-system man at this point.
I need a Super Nintendo because if I can't play Final Fight at home, what am I supposed to do? You know, I need to play Final Fight at home.
It can't just be a Nathan's thing. It's got to be an everyday thing.
So yeah, once that's kind of what happened was I got the Super Nintendo for Final Fight. And then when Street Fighter 2 was coming, I was like, what are we supposed to do with only 3 buttons? And then it didn't come out for the Genesis, and it did come out for the Super Nintendo. It was almost like I never even looked back. I just didn't go back to my Genesis. So almost everything that came out after the release of Street Fighter 2 is like, oh, what is this? I didn't know there was a Virtua Fighter. What's this Vector Man game?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just, and I've explored a lot of those things because of the collections that they made available years later.
That 6-button controller that came out later in the Genesis' life is the best Street Fighter controller outside of joysticks. because
I never used it actually.
It had the 3 and the 3, so light, medium, hard, punch, and kick. It just didn't get better than that. It's actually not on my list. That's another honorable mention.
For you arcade players at home, I'm going to translate that. That's jab, strong, fierce.
Yeah. So, exactly. So that 6-button layout was great, man. I love that.
Yeah, if they had come out with that at the beginning, I would have loved it. And even recently, they did the M2 re-release of the hardware, the Mini, and that came with the 3-button controller.
Fuck that.
And I was like, come on, man. What am I supposed to do with this?
I know.
What good is this for Street Fighter? And I think you were supposed to like press the start button and it would switch between punches and kicks.
That's fucking ridiculous.
I'm not good enough to pull that off.
No one is. That's fucking stupid.
But the Super Nintendo, even though it was less than ideal with its 4 face buttons and 2 shoulder buttons, had 6 buttons. So they were all there. I still ended up learning to play kind of without those shoulder buttons, or at least the left one, because it was very uncomfortable for me to use that.
Dude, so quick side tangent here, but with Street Fighter, I always wanted to map my buttons to where the strongest was like, I have like X, Y. Make that one, make strong or fierce Y, and then B. But because I did not want my strongs to be L and R, my fiercest to be L and R.
Yeah.
I want that to be my lights, my jabs. So
I went the other way.
That was the default.
I generally put the jab. I put the jab and the fierce on the front, on the face, the 4 buttons on the face, and I put the medium attacks on the shoulders because I knew I generally used those less. And I only used the forward kick, which was the medium kick, on the face instead of the short kick, the light kick, if I was going to use Ken or Ryu, because they had the 2-in-1 from the low forward kick into the fireball.
But there was like one of the games lately, I can't remember what it was, but like it had my layout automatically there, like by default. I was like, damn, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Is people doing that now these days?
But yeah, the controls were definitely a big issue there. And that's the Genesis only having 3 buttons initially was like, okay, I guess I have to leave this behind for now because I can't play Street Fighter. The game wasn't even available for like another year or so. But when you're a kid, a year is like, it's dead to me now.
It takes forever, yeah. I mean, well, we won't get into 32X and Sega CD, but... like, I think I had a pretty decent time with my Sega CD, and 32X was like Virtual Boy. It was like there for a month and then gone just about. Like it was kind of cool, but it just had no support. Yeah. No support.
I had a friend who had the 32X, and I remember going to his house and being like, dude, what is this? You got a 32X? I've never even seen this. This is cool. Let's play with it. And he was like, those games aren't so good.
Yeah.
So
dude,
we messed around with them, and like it wasn't all that impressive, but it was still like, I gotta explore it. We had the Sega CD that a friend of mine had back in high school, and he let me borrow it, and we kept it in my room at the school because I was in a dormitory, and you couldn't have TVs. I had a what do you call that? A Commodore monitor, because it didn't display a TV signal, so I could just plug the game systems in there, and it was fine. Okay. And so people used to come to my room to play, and that's why he brought the Sega CD there. That's how I played Lunar. But that's a little different from Genesis, right? Those are all more expensive add-ons.
We'll do a Sega CD one later, maybe. Season 2, maybe. All right, so you want to go into our deal here? Our top 3?
Yeah, sure.
Anything else?
Let's get into it. I'm sure there will be some other memories that crop up here, but for the most part, the jump to 16-bit was like, to me, the arcade perfect thing, and I was so happy to see that happen with the Genesis, and it just, Altered Beast was the pack-in game, and I was absolutely ecstatic about it.
See, that was my first jump. I missed the Atari age completely. When people say, oh, that the NES had such better graphics, in my brain I'm thinking, better than what? Like, that's, for me, that's ground zero for graphics. If graphics begin here. But then when I look at Atari, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I see it
Right.
now. But
Yeah.
before, I just had no reference. I didn't grow up with that reference at all. So, yeah. I mean, that jump from 8 to 16 was great. And then I know you've never really like fully gave your heart to 32-bit with the PS1, but
Yeah.
dude, I mean, the PS1 had a lot of really like stellar games, and
It did.
it was a big jump, a huge technological jump. Even though you thought it looked worse, it was still kind of cool to play in 3D space.
Yeah, like it was definitely cool. It just wasn't that interesting to me. That wasn't the jump I was looking for.
You never liked any kind of 3D game?
I mean, I did eventually, and we'll get into that someday when we, discuss PlayStation 1, because 3D just wasn't really the thing on the 16-bit era.
No, it didn't exist really.
And that's the thing, like 3D, again, where were your like 3D exploration platformers in the arcade? They weren't there. Like that's, the arcade is the tastemaker for me,
I understand.
Like, I want that experience, and that's not really, it doesn't reflect that.
I understand.
And that's fine.
I mean, I loved the arcade as well. I mean, fighting games.
It's a
and
major
all those kind of
divergence.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, man, let's get into it.
All right, let's get into these top few.
With my pick, so we're at the number 3. We're going from bottom to top. Phantasy Star, man.
Ooh.
Talking about not arcade, but again, this is cheating because I did not grow up with this game. I didn't read that much as a kid. I didn't play RPGs really at all, except for Final Fantasy VII. But I got this on. Okay, let me backtrack. When I played Zelda Breath of the Wild, it changed my whole fucking mind about RPGs. So after I went back and played a shitload of other Zelda games and beat them all, I was like, what else we got? So I checked this out eventually. Maybe there's some other stuff in between. This was like a little before the pandemic, maybe. And dude, I can't remember. I couldn't tell you what happened in the story to save my life. But at the time, I liked the story. I was playing it in Japanese too, and great music. And it's like probably my favorite Genesis music, honestly. And it was, I don't know what it is, dude. I could not fucking put this goddamn game down. I beat this with save states. I beat this game. And
save states are very helpful for that sort of thing.
I had a great time, especially the last bosses. I just not gonna grind, dude. I'm sure the real experience has you grinding a lot, but
yeah,
usually. I didn't do that. But
the other thing is, I feel like they were always stingy with saves.
Yeah, they're stingy with that shit, especially at this time. So, and also like this is the same creator as Altered Beast, Rieko Kodama. And she's known.
They couldn't be more different.
I know they're really different. She also did Skies of Arcadia for GameCube and Dreamcast.
That's awesome.
She loves Star Wars, and so this is like a little Japanese Star Wars. It's in the name. It's half fantasy, half sci-fi. It's Phantasy Star, right? So it's a lot of fantasy elements, but it's also straight up sci-fi as well. Would love to see some sort of new remake, like not remake, but a sequel to this. But Kodama has said that like basically this is it. The story ends here, which is fine, whatever. But like, they could definitely tell some other story in a similar kind of vein.
They really do. I've long felt that Phantasy Star deserved some continuation in the modern era. And when I say the modern era, I mean, I was talking about this like back in the PS2 days and stuff. Like, where's Phantasy Star?
Great series, man. I mean, I haven't beat all of them. I beat 1 and 4. I've tried 2 and 3, but 2 and 3 I had a harder time getting into. But
2, I had 2 on the Genesis. It came with like a hint guide and everything, and I had to use it a lot. That was a tough game. I had a lot of trouble with it. I don't know as an adult if it'd be a little easier for me, but it was really difficult as a kid. I spent a lot of time with it. I liked it, but I couldn't beat it, and I just eventually quit. Went back to my arcade games. You know?
You didn't have save states either. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's surprising to me. I never thought I would be so into RPGs, and I'm still not into a lot of them. But the ones I've really loved, I really loved, and this is just a great one. Happy Console Gamer on YouTube also loves this series.
If you know the battle stuff, the battle scenes are done on the beautiful futuristic grid that is a trademark of Sega.
That is true. I'll accept it here because it's like a virtual reality looking thing. But you're right. At first, I had a hard time just the characters popping up.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my first RPGs was Chrono Trigger, so all the characters are there and they do their move.
Yeah.
And like to see this and like Earthbound was just like, where are the fucking characters? Well, you can't see shit. But I don't know. You just kind of like get over it, and it's like it was great. I played it on emulator, I guess, probably on my emulated PS Vita or something. I don't even remember what I played it on, but I beat it on that. So there it is.
Cool. I think this is available on the current Genesis collection, along with 2 and 3.
Yeah, it is.
So I'd love to go back and give all these games a playthrough. It's just time is not on my side, really.
Right.
I have a friend that I went to college with, and we're still, very close. And he loved part 3. 3 is his favorite. Yeah.
That's usually.
But I never
the
played
worst,
3. I never had it. Nobody I knew had it, and after getting trounced by 2, I was like, I don't know if I want to get 3 myself.
I've heard 3 was the hardest one as well, the grindiest.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to ask him.
Right.
But no, I see this. So this cover art for Phantasy Star 4, I really like the 70s style, almost like a Frazetta or Vallejo or whatever.
Yes.
But I think that if we could make this artwork work with the black grid, I would like it more.
I love the artwork too. It also is like, it's cool. I like it, but
No.
The real what the Japanese side had in mind was a more anime look. If you look at I don't have it right now. I guess I could pull it up, but the Japanese side looks like just straight up fantasy anime, which is, if you look at the game, that's what it is.
Okay. I've never seen the box art for the Japanese version. It's pretty standard stuff to be like, here is your American sci-fi fantasy art.
It's
very
a classic,
realistic,
classic example of like them kind of localizing the art. Because at that time they wouldn't accept it. Now everybody would, but
I mean, I think they made the right decision for the time. Like for me as a kid, I would have been more drawn to this. Just like Dragon Warrior's artwork was just completely different. If I had seen the Japanese box art for Dragon Quest on the American box, I would have been like, eh. But when I saw that Dragon Warrior art, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Right. I don't know. I liked anime so much since the beginning. It's hard to tell what I would have liked, but
I mean, I did too. But it would have been like, okay, so I would have looked at it at that time as cutesy. And I would have said, that's not what I want from this.
Right.
So
right. I love this font too. I'm looking at it now.
They made the right decision in marketing. I made the wrong decision for myself.
That's okay.
But that was the culture then,
Yeah, that's true. This is, it's just one of those kind of surprising things about gaming for me. Yeah. All right, going to your number 3.
All right. The Revenge of Shinobi. Now, this is not an arcade game, but it is very much an arcade game. So Shinobi was an arcade game, right? And it was kind of Sega's approach to Rolling Thunder. And you just kind of walk left to right, shoot the enemies. It feels great to control, feels great to play. You rescued the kids. And I loved it. I played it in the arcade. I played it on the Master System. So when this came along on the Genesis, The Revenge of Shinobi, I just was like, oh my God, what is this? I haven't even seen this in the arcade. I got to try this. I loved every minute of it. The music is phenomenal. Now, I know that, you might hear me discuss this on other episodes because Revenge of Shinobi was an important game for me. The music was fantastic. The opening scene, like that blew me away. Just the title screen where they showed what's his face, Sonny Chiba as Hattori Hanzo or whatever, and he does that little shuriken deflection, and you see the close up of his eyes. I was like, what am I in for? Like, this to me was like, this is next gen. This is gonna blow your goddamn mind. You cannot handle this.
It looks real,
and that's really what I felt. The thing is, one of the reasons too that I loved this game so much was that, again, I could beat it. It was so rare that I could actually complete a game, you know? But this
it was so hard back in the day.
Yeah, you know? And like, the thing is, I didn't want to have to master everything because I hated when I would get to like, just generically say like stage 4 and just get beaten by some boss and then be like, okay, now I got to start over again and be like, well, now I'm not going to play for like a week or two because I don't want to deal with that. That's a hassle.
Right.
But this game, I think I was reading a magazine or something and they showed me that there was a spot where you could get 2 1-ups. So I farmed the 2 1-ups to give myself like 99 lives. I used the infinite shuriken cheat in the menu where you put it on the 00 and just leave it there. And after like 7 or 8 seconds, it just kind of morphs into an infinity symbol.
That's awesome.
So, and when I was in trouble, I could just spam the like jump attack where you throw a whole bunch of the stars. I just loved it. And each boss, the bosses were really cool. And I remember thinking at the time like, this boss looks a lot like Godzilla. This boss looks a lot like Spider-Man. This one looks like Batman. And then, you know, as I got older, I found out like, yeah, that was legit. That was for real. It really was them. But like some of them were licensed, some of them weren't, and they had to make revisions to the cartridge. So that's kind of sad. I don't know. I don't know if anyone really gets to play the original without holding onto the cartridge or finding a ROM of that version of it.
Right.
Because I checked it out on the recent collection and instead of it clearly being Godzilla, it's like bones with the visible organs and no flesh. It's kind of weird. Like, it's still a great game. It still feels good to play. The music is still phenomenal. The controls are still spot on. But it's kind of weird to just be like, oh, those all look so different.
Right. I don't know if I played this, man, growing up. I wish I had.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's still an impressive game, but it's certainly a much more impressive game if you're playing it for the first time in like 1990 or whatever it was.
Yeah, this would have been something I definitely would have rented, but I don't know why. I just like the Shinobi series in general, I kind of passed me by. I think I rented one of them or something and liked it, but I don't know what it is, man. But there was a Super Shinobi on Super Nintendo, right, or no?
No.
Oh, no?
There was Super Shinobi is the Japanese name of Revenge of Shinobi, which is Shinobi 2.
Okay.
There was Shinobi on the Sega Master System, and eventually I think it was Tengen who did like the unlicensed NES cartridges, released a version on the NES, but I don't think it was very good.
Okay.
And the Sega Master System version was also a little bit different from the arcade version, but it was mostly the same. It might have been a little bit better actually on the overall.
Okay.
But yeah, this game was fantastic. Music,
it looks great.
Sprites, like those sprites just blew me away, and like the bosses were huge, you know. That's an impressive thing back then. Be like, my God, look at the size of this boss. Right.
Yeah, I played The Messenger, which is like a spiritual successor almost to this game, maybe, but this is kind of the OG.
Yeah,
I need to get this. I need to have this. I need to acquire this once again for my.
I mean, to anybody listening to this who has any interest in the Genesis whatsoever, I highly recommend just getting whatever the latest collection is. I've got it, and it's a ton of fun. It has the rewind and fast forward features. So you can manipulate things as you like and really explore all these games. A lot of them you probably never played because they came late stage, had lower print runs, or they're too expensive to get a hold of.
This was early though, right?
This is early. And you could see because it still has the classic Genesis design.
Oh, yeah. True.
The black grid.
That's true.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Nice, man. I wish I had more to say about this one, but I just didn't play it growing up, man.
Yeah. Well, it's an impressive game. It really is beautiful. Oh, I love it.
I'm gonna definitely play that later. All right, moving on to my number 2, right?
All right.
Here we
Yep.
go. That's Altered Beast, man. What can I
look at
say?
that.
It's got that black and white grid at the bottom as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, what can I say, man? It's Rieko Kodama again. This is probably her first hit. The controls are god awful, but it's I don't know.
I think they're
it's still,
fine. I think they actually feel better on the Genesis than the arcade version.
dude. I mean, it was just kind of clunky and slow in some ways. Like it's like the way an American game would be, but still, it's great. There's just something about it. It's classic. I love the I didn't notice this too much about myself growing up, but like I do like dark characters, like the werewolves and like this whole kind of like thing. I was never like, I love Halloween, everyone, but I am. There is a part of me that's like that, I think.
Oh, yeah. That's for me too. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm in that industry now as well, which has only exacerbated it probably, where we make monster movies, movie monsters.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this iconic screen here, the transformation.
The transformation the screen and the scream, like they were a staple of the arcade for me. Like I just loved that I could be in an arcade and be like, oh, I hear Altered Beast. There it is.
The most popular podcast, not the most, but my favorite one, it's very popular, Last Podcast on the Left. They even sample this. And I'm sure a lot of the younger people listening don't know where it's from, but it's in their.
Oh yeah.
It's in their intro song. It's in every single episode. It's the Rise from Your Grave.
I love it.
Yeah, so that's it makes you think it's a nerd podcast at first, but it's not. They just like that sound. And dude, if Sega's ever like, hey guys, we need you to change it, they're gonna have to change all their episodes. But apparently they're good. But
it's one of those things I think that where if it's mixed in with something that it won't trigger any copyright strikes because it's not really recognizable. But yeah, Altered Beast for me was huge. Like I said, it was the thing that put me on the Genesis. That was just like, look at this goddamn system. This is incredible. This is the arcade in my house. I can't believe it.
I can't believe that the Genesis was out before the Super Nintendo, man. Like I was looking back, I thought they had come out around the same time. That's what I thought when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It was out like 2 or 3 years before or something.
I think it was 2 years, but I don't know because America and Japan were on different timetables.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I mean, it's so impressive, and I think to this day, like a lot of people don't recognize that the Genesis was more capable than the Super Nintendo in a lot of the important factors, like the number of sprites you could display and everything. Because it was built like, oh, we're thinking, 2D horsepower arcade stuff,
Right.
And the Super Nintendo was similar to the NES, where it's like, well, what can we do that's profitable but still decent, And we're going to work within whatever limitations we have, because we don't have an arcade setting a high bar.
There was something kind of crisper about graphics. For the Super Nintendo, I think. There's something kind of almost muddy looking about Genesis graphics at times, but I still like it. But that's just a difference I notice.
I agree with you, and I think that there's an issue there. It's like the pros and cons. I think that the Super Nintendo has a broader color palette, but displays fewer on-screen colors at one time, something along those lines. Okay. So it's like they went heavier in one direction, and of course, because Nintendo is developing for Nintendo systems, they just work within the limitations. Whereas Sega is like, all right, how do we make this awesome PCB arcade game work on the Genesis now?
So this is a game that every emulator machine I've ever gotten, I've put this game on there. I go back to it, And for the longest time, I didn't get past the first level. And then I was
Really?
yeah. And then I was like, oh, you turn into other shit other than that first guy? Like, I didn't even fucking know. I had never had the arcade experience with this. I did have it on Genesis at the time as well, I believe. But again, I think it was kind of like a later purchase or something, probably used. But I did play it at the time, just a little later. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. What can I say, man? It's great. I wish they make a movie about this. They made a fucking Rampage movie. They might as well make this movie, right?
starring The Rock.
I mean, why not? Look at these guys. The fucking bear, dude. I mean, it's just, again, with platformers and any kind of arcade game, it's to me, it's all about the power-ups. Power-ups are really big. Yeah. You want to be able to do different shit.
As a kid, it was just like, this is the absolute peak of excitement. Like, I'm going to turn into a bear?
Yeah.
Oh my God, wait, you could be a tiger too?
It's great. And you know what? The shirt shrank a lot in the fucking dryer, but I have two actually, a newer one.
I saw you wearing that logo shirt one time, and yeah, like this cover art for Altered Beast is just like some of the best thing I've ever seen. It's the thing so is, good.
With that shirt too, it was my favorite shirt because it was a distressed logo kind of shirt. It looked vintage. It had a really cool look, and like it looks like a heavy metal band. And
yeah, it's a pretty metal cover, man.
It's a metal ass cover, right? And a lot of Genesis, like Chalk and the Forever Man. you know, there's a bunch of metal ass covers for Genesis, and that was what was great about it. But one time I was wearing that shirt, dude, I swear to God, bro, I'm walking down the street. I thought this guy was about to jump me. In the middle of the day, I'm at work. I'm going to the gas station near my work to get a snack or whatever. This guy pulls over and he says, "Sweet shirt, man," and then drives off. Like, people fondly remember this game. I get compliment on that shirt every time I wear it. Every time, dude.
Yeah.
By dudes around our age. Like, people just love this game, man. It's fucking sweet.
It really was, man. It's so good, and it holds up. Like, I still go back and play it pretty regularly.
It's great.
Because again, I can beat it, and it doesn't take too long.
No, it was an arcade game. It doesn't take too long.
You know? So it's just like, let's take a quick 20 minutes, play through Altered Beast.
It's on my Steam Deck in emulator form. All right, moving on to your number 2, right?
All right. Yep.
Or are we on to your number 1? I already forgot.
No, we're on to my number 2.
Okay, number 2.
All right. My number 3 was Revenge of Shinobi. My number 2 is Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse. This might be a little unexpected, right? We didn't have any arcade game for this, but this was as much an arcade platformer as you could imagine at the time. It really was a beautiful game. I am still really impressed by the sprite work on this game. It's when Mickey is standing in his idle animation and he puts his hands behind his back and he just kind of shakes his butt back and forth like he's whistling a tune or whatever. I love it. It's just, there's so much put into this and you could feel it come across so well. Oh, I just saw the video there. For those who are watching it, who are listening on the podcast, there is a video of gameplay footage along with this, and it's worth checking. This is another game that one of the reasons I liked it so much was that I could beat it. I would play through the whole thing. It was obviously geared towards a younger audience. And an interesting thing about this is I remember reading once that they took issue with the idea of lives, that you couldn't have Mickey die, right? Even in theory. And so instead of saying lives or whatever, they were like, oh, what if we did the word tries? And they put tries in there to represent how many attempts you had to succeed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
An interesting little touch, but like in this game, you had the jump on enemies ability like Mario, but you had to press down to like get your butt stomp going. Otherwise, you were just doing a full jump.
Right.
You could throw apples at them. But the real beauty of this game, I felt, was like the animation. It was just, the sprite work was phenomenal. The music is really good. I like the structure of it because it takes sort of a, classic video game design. Like, here is your forest world. Here is your candy world. And you get to explore all these different things.
I need more of that in games these days. Like, just give me a fucking level, dude. Just a fucking level to play through. That's it.
Oh, look at this. I'm playing on the bookshelf now, and there are letters jumping at me, and there's a jar. Like, it's just these things. It doesn't have to make sense. It has to be cool. And like, this was fun and cool. And I loved every minute of it. I played it again and again, and I still look to play it on the regular. I have the remake of this game on the PC, and I put it on my wish list for the Xbox as well, so I could comfortably play it in the living room someday if it ever goes on sale.
It's an HD remake of the same exact thing?
It is. It's a 3D platformer, but it's really kind of 2.5D side-scrolling still.
Okay.
It takes a lot of liberties. It does a lot of things differently, but it does them all well. It's a good game in its own right. And it's not expensive. It's about $15. I just, like, I've bought it so many times that it's like, well, I kind of need to wait for it to go on sale. Right. But I think that I've been thinking about this, if kids today wanted to get started on classic games, I feel like Mickey Mouse is a great one to start with. If you have any interest in getting a kid to try out some retro games when they're young, Mickey Mouse is a good way to go. And Castle of Illusion is my favorite of the Mickey Mouse games from the 16-bit era.
That's awesome. I don't have much. Again, I'm going to say this again, but I didn't play this one growing up. I probably played this a little bit on emulator. It looks great.
Yeah,
people say the Game Gear. People say the Game Gear version is one of the best, if not the best, Game Gear game as well. But
so it's funny you mentioned that, because when I got the Genesis, I didn't really look back to the Sega Master System. Right. Because to me, it was like, okay, the tech is moving forward. We're closer to arcade perfect now. That's where I want to be. When I learned that there was a Sega Master System version of Castle of Illusion, I just figured it was like some of the other ports where the Sega Master System is just the weaker version of it. Like, I think there's an Altered Beast and a Golden Axe on the Master System version, and they're just not good. They're just really rough to play. So I thought that was the case for this, but then I learned that the Sega Master System version of Castle of Illusion is a different game. It's a unique game in its own right. It's got different levels and bosses and different play mechanics. And I finally went and played it maybe like 2 years ago, and I really was impressed. I loved it. And so I think that the Game Gear version is the Sega Master System version.
Okay.
Ported to the Game Gear. Because I'm pretty sure the hardware was similar or the same, pretty much.
That's one of my wife's favorite games. Is that she doesn't have many, but she grew up with a Game Gear herself, and that was the game for her. I mean, it's fucking Mickey Mouse. What can you can't go wrong. Yeah,
and like that's the thing, Castle of Illusion, same game, and you got two completely different, fantastic games to play.
This probably would have loved if I played it. I don't know why I skipped this. I think there was also, I might have been getting into EGM already at this point, and I don't know, maybe I was starting to be aware of licensed games not being that great. So maybe that's why I skipped it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that was definitely a thing. I had a good sense of that, and it took a while to unlearn, because like I was thinking, oh, Castle of Illusion is so good. Maybe these other licensed games are great. And there were quite a few that were great. Capcom, when they had all those Disney games. But
dude, Disney had great games on the 16-bit era. I mean, the Aladdin game was good. The Lion King game was good. They were hard, but they were good. The Gargoyles game, maybe that's not Disney, but like Disney's like, there's a reason they're good. They seem to pay attention to what fans want, Yeah.
Well, most importantly, they were farming it out to the right people. And they were like Sega and Capcom,
Right. No, yeah. I mean, this game looks fucking excellent. I don't know how I missed it.
Yeah, I loved this. And for years, I thought the enemy in this game was from something else, like in the Disney realm, but apparently the witch Mizrabel was unique for Castle of Illusion. And
Oh, was it?
I only learned that relatively recently.
That's cool.
Not that it matters, but you know, that's who the witch is you see flying in the background of the classic art. And I love that artwork. I really do.
That's awesome. I wish I played it. I wish I had played this. All right, we're gonna move on to what honorable mentions, right?
Did you do your?
Oh, did I?
Number? I don't think so. I think you have to do your number 2.
Oh wait, no, because we're ending on you. So I think we're going to honorables.
You did Altered Beast.
Yeah. Moving on.
Oh, and Phantasy Star. So maybe you are.
Honorable mention, man. Yeah, I think this is it.
Okay.
So I could kind of put all the Sonics if I'm cheating, especially Sonic 2. But for some reason, I think my Genesis love really was like at its peak around this time. And there was something with the 32X with this, right? Or no? Or no, it had an extra cartridge or some shit.
I don't know. I know there was a Knuckles game, but I don't know what else they had for this.
Yeah, I mean, everybody cites Sonic 2 as the best one, or Sonic CD, and there is a case for Sonic CD as well. But I don't think you've actually told the folks at home what particular game you're featuring. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm used to the visuals. It's Sonic and Knuckles for Genesis. We're getting later in the Genesis lifetime probably, but
yeah, there's a red band on the box art.
we needed a Sonic game. I needed a Sonic game in my list. So, and for some reason, this is it. I never really see this on people's like top lists, but it is for me. So,
that's all that counts. You can only speak for yourself.
I just remember playing this a lot. I probably beat it. I can't remember, but I'm sure I did. And just at the height of my Genesis love, man. I love all the Sonic world. I love Knuckles, Tails. I've liked the movies that have come out too. I really enjoyed the movies too. Yeah, the movies are surprisingly good.
Yeah.
Did you ever play this?
I did not play Sonic and Knuckles or Sonic 2 because I didn't like Sonic 1.
You never liked any Sonics?
So spoiler, my number 1 will not be Sonic.
You don't like Sonic at all?
Yes and no. So at the time, I did not like it. So I played the first game, and I remember hearing so much about it, when it came out. Like, oh, there's this new awesome Genesis game. Sonic. Okay. So there's this guy in the neighborhood who had it, and I was like, yo, I want to try this game. Can we give it a shot? And I went over to his house, and I was blown away by the Sega.
Yeah.
And then they were like, yeah, this is like the fastest game. You could go insane speeds. And every time I tried to move, I just hit something, and I never went more than like a second at high speed. And so
if you learn the levels, you can.
Yeah, it was like you're going to have to master this game in order to actually enjoy it, and I didn't find that to be interesting. So I never bothered after that.
That is the key problem with game design, I think, probably with Sonic, is that like not that I've said before that I don't really like get into world building that much, but whenever you play a platformer, you do need to kind of experience the world a little bit. And if like all you do is like run straight through that shit, then you don't really experience the world you're playing in. So that's kind of that's kind of the problem. Like if you had Mario and Sonic on the table, I'd probably choose Mario ultimately. But I do still like Sonic, but I think that they've never really like reconciled that problem. Probably like you have to. Well, they did a little bit, I guess, with Sonic Adventure, but you have to kind of.
Well, yeah, the 3D games obviously changed the way things flowed quite a bit.
Yeah, and yeah, if the whole point is to go fast, but you get stopped every 5 seconds, it's like it's a little annoying. But I don't know what it is. It still kind of worked for me, and it was just cool to see him do loops and shit with Tails.
I don't know. Can you play 2-player, one as Sonic, one as Knuckles, or is it just Sonic and Tails?
So
Did you play with your brothers?
I don't remember them playing this that much, man. Like,
Oh.
it was mainly me solo. But by the way, he's supersonic for a long time here. I forgot it lasted this long. But I just remember you can play as Knuckles, but he has like a float move. I remember. I think kind of like you can play him almost like you do Luigi in Mario 2. Or no, not Luigi.
Wait, doesn't
Princess
he do
Peach.
like a diving punch or something?
Something like that. He can climb on walls with his knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. Honestly, they could make a great 3D Knuckles game. Now that I think about it, but
Well, he was in Sonic Adventure, right?
yeah, I think so. I definitely had that because I remember being blown right the fuck away with that fucking intro with the fucking killer whale, man. That shit was like absolutely fucking mind blowing, man. But I don't know. This is just a great one. If I had another like kind of like slight honorable mention, it might be Mega Turrican, man.
Oh, well, that's a whole other story. I never got to play that one.
Mega and Super Turrican were like really great games.
Yeah, I definitely am interested in them. They did a collection of that game recently, but I think it was only on the PS4, and I just haven't gotten a hold of it yet. But yeah, the Sonic and like the kids who lived next door to me, there were 3 kids, 2 brothers, and they were close in age, and they used to play games together. They played a lot of the Sonic games, and especially Sonic 2, where you had the split screen. And I just was wondering, I don't know if this one had the split screen as well or what.
There was split screen in Sonic?
Yeah, in Sonic 2.
I don't remember that at all.
That's weird. I figured since you had brothers, you guys were playing together. That's what made this. I was thinking maybe that's what made the difference here. That's what made this game really stand out to you.
I don't think my brothers were into Genesis, man. Or maybe I kept it from them or something. Being a shitty older brother. It's probably a little bit of both. Because my brother, when it got to the N64, that was my brother's system, and I played like GoldenEye and Star Fox, but I never played a whole lot of. Comparatively, I didn't play a whole lot of N64 really. Just like they didn't play this.
Yeah, I N64. I think we should have an interesting episode on the N64 someday.
Yeah, I have some hot takes on that one. So yeah, God, this looks. I mean, when I see this footage too, it just looks like I want to play it again. It looks cool. I love platformers. Those and fighting games are still my favorite genres, man.
Well, I will say that the Sonic series never clicked with me in 2D. I did mess with the 3D ones.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of problems, but I still found them interesting and engaging, and I completed them. And I even played recently, I think it was Sonic Generations, where you went back and forth through the 3D and the 2D stuff. And it was pretty cool. And Sonic Mania, I'm not sure what Sonic Mania is, like if those levels are remixed or whatever. It was cheap.
No, it's new.
Was like, yeah, sure. And I ended up enjoying it because I felt like whatever they did, they let me go fast. That's really the key. They were just like, okay, we've designed these levels so that you can go fast without getting knocked out of it every 2 seconds.
Right. I got to play that again. That's great.
So yeah, Sonic Mania impressed me, given the fact that I never liked Sonic initially.
Cool. All right, we're going to move on to your honorable mention.
Honorable mention. All right. My honorable mention is Streets of Rage 2. Now, the reason I have this game in honorable mention is that I didn't really play it back then. So Streets of Rage 1 came along, and this was kind of the Sega answer at the time to the absence of Final Fight. For whatever reason, Capcom did their exclusive deal with Nintendo for Final Fight. I don't know if it was timed, because I think eventually they got it on the Sega CD. But there was a big hole in the library. And right. Sega, rather than make an arcade game, made their Genesis game. They did Streets of Rage. And I played that co-op with a good friend of mine. We're still close friends. We chat every so often. I grew up with him all through the years playing Sega Master System and everything. We played that co-op when I went to stay at his house, and it was pretty cool. But like, the sprites were small. It wasn't really all that impressive in the combo system. Like, I used to love in how Final Fight you just hold up when you're punching and they automatically do the throw and stuff like that. And the sprites were massive for the time. It was a beautiful game. And Streets of Rage 1, while pretty good, and of course had very good music, just didn't really impress me. It didn't have that arcade pedigree at all.
Right.
So when Streets of Rage 2 came along, I paid it no mind. I didn't even think about it because I didn't think Streets of Rage 1 was impressive, even though it was pretty fun. It wasn't until many, many years later that I went back to Streets of Rage 2 and I was like, hey, this is pretty good. And I really started getting into it. And I was like, dude, why didn't I play this back then? Oh, yeah, no, I know why I didn't play it. But damn, that sucks because I really would have enjoyed playing this co-op with someone back in the day. But it was just, I don't know what year it came out, if it was past the time too, where like I was already pretty much just focused on the Super NES because Street Fighter came out.
Right.
Like, all right, well, that's where I am now. But this game is really, really good. I do think that they're too long. I also think Final Fight is too long. But it's still fun. I think it's fantastic. The arcade style combat and everything. This is everything you really could want, I feel, in a brawler. And I think that they did a great job with Streets of Rage 4 too. That's one of my favorite games of the whole generation. And
that remake or the new sequel or whatever?
No, Streets of Rage 4, the newest Streets of Rage game.
Yeah,
it's an amazingly good game. It just feels so good.
Same company as that Shredder's Revenge, man. It's a French company. They're killing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're doing a great job, man.
They know exactly what makes that genre tick.
Yes, absolutely. And what they did was when they were designing Streets of Rage 4, I remember seeing the video footage that they had basically like a dual output for the Genesis controller. Yeah. And they were controlling Streets of Rage 2 and Streets of Rage 4 simultaneously to make sure that it maintained the feel.
Okay.
And that's why Streets of Rage 4 feels so spot on, because they were just like, yeah, we're doing this completely in sync with Streets of Rage 2. And some people were upset that Streets of Rage 3, like the roll ability wasn't in there and stuff. But having played all of the Streets of Rage games now and spent a lot of time with them, I think Streets of Rage 2 is definitely the best, other than Streets of Rage 4. I think Streets of Rage 4 is better, but if you could have put all of the great stuff of Streets of Rage 4 into Streets of Rage 2, 2 would probably be cooler.
Yeah, I did actually grow up with this a little bit. I think I played it at a friend's house first.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of the first games that was like, oh, other than Sonic, this is like, oh, this is a Genesis game. This really signified, this is like an ambassador for Genesis kind of game. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely played this, probably beat it at least once, I think, with a friend, maybe at a sleepover or something. I can't remember exactly, but
that's the best way to play these games, you know?
Yeah, these games were really big at the time, like Final Fight and all those kind of games, man. Like the beat 'em ups, it was really big. I mean, Turtles in Time. I think Turtles in Time though was the beat 'em up for me growing up, but that was a Super Nintendo game.
Yeah. Well, the Hyperstone Heist was there on the Genesis, but I never got to play that one.
I know, and people say it's great, and like it kind of got overshadowed by the Super Nintendo one.
Yeah. Well, you couldn't throw enemies at the screen, so.
Oh, but you can on Genesis?
No, what I'm saying is the Super Nintendo one had the Mode 7 graphics thing where you threw the enemies at the screen, but the Genesis one didn't do that. It's like what can the Genesis do that's better than the Super NES? What can the Super NES do that's better than the Genesis? And that ability of having that sprite scaling flying out to the screen for a pseudo 3D effect, that made a huge difference.
That's true. That was so fun, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is great. I love that beat 'em ups are kind of back at the moment.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's great.
Shredder's Revenge is like a 10 out of 10 game, by the way.
Yeah, it's actually so good that it's like kind of sad because it's just like, oh, well, now I don't know if I want to play Turtles in Time. This is better.
It's and the soundtrack too, the Wu-Tang and shit doing songs, dude. Are you kidding me, man?
That completely shocked me. I was like, what is going on?
I'm so real quick. I make a best of for the year playlist on my iTunes.
Yeah.
And these are songs that I discovered that year. They don't have to come out that year, but they often do. And so I did put that Wu-Tang one in my best of 2022 playlist.
Nice. This soundtrack, Streets of Rage 2, is great also. It's Yuzo Koshiro who did Revenge of Shinobi. So like both games just have phenomenal music through and through.
Genesis had really great music looking back, man.
Yeah, it's weird because I feel like the sound chip was muddled and stuff. Something wasn't right with it because like when they eventually got Street Fighter, it didn't sound good to me. Right. But the things that were made for the Genesis sound good.
Right. I mean, dude, check out Phantasy Star soundtrack. There's a couple tracks. I'll have to find them and send them to you. I was like, this is so good.
I just remembered I wanted to ask you a question about Phantasy Star 4. Sorry to distract here from Streets of Rage 2, but
yeah.
You said you played the Japanese version.
Yeah.
Did the Japanese version use kanji or was it all katakana like the earlier games or hiragana?
I believe it used kanji, but it might.
Okay.
It definitely wasn't katakana. It was hiragana at least. Let me look that up.
That's okay. You don't have to say now. I guess we could find out later. I just was curious because I remember thinking, oh, Phantasy Star 1 on the Sega Ages re-release would be kind of nice to play in Japanese. And then I took a look at it and I was like, I think this is all hiragana. I don't want to do that.
Dude, the original Master System version was all katakana, which was
It's
terrible.
all katakana. Okay, yeah.
I
just remember thinking, without kanji, this is going to be really difficult for me.
Yeah, can you believe? Yeah, but that's just how it is. Kanji makes it easier.
Yeah.
So we're ready to move on to number ones then.
Yep. It's time for the big show.
The big show, man. It could only be one for me. Come on, show up.
Let's see what it is.
It's Mortal Kombat 2, because Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 kind of lumped together in some ways because this is a clear pick over the Super Nintendo because you had the blood.
Well, the blood was there on the first Genesis game and not on the first Super Nintendo game. But
did Super Nintendo have blood?
The Super Nintendo version of MK2 had blood, but I think most folks didn't know or care because they had gone to play on the Genesis because Genesis won over that crowd with the first release.
Won over the crowd. I preferred Mortal Kombat on Genesis for that. I'm going to kind of cheat here. Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 basically because of the blood, and I was just a big Mortal Kombat fan. I still am. I buy all of them. I did quit during their dark ages from 4 to 8. We don't talk about them, but and 2 is probably the best one. And I don't know, man. I thought of some other games like Vector Man, other good ones, but if you're talking about games that I played at the time and I loved and are kind of indicative, that are representative of the Genesis of Sega, this is it for me. This is it. I was on a bunch of systems, but I think really shined on the Genesis. So,
yeah, I had it on the Super Nintendo. I actually got the SNES version, which means it came out after Street Fighter 2. So,
okay.
And I think it's hard to say. I haven't gone back to do any sort of Pepsi challenge between the two versions, but I do feel like the Super Nintendo version was prettier. I don't know which one has better sound or anything like that. But when it came to Mortal Kombat 1, there was no question. Like, we were all playing on the Genesis, and I remember, and that's with a 3-button controller.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And this is a 5-button game, isn't it? Didn't we just? How did we even play it?
By the time 2 came out, it might have had 6. I can't remember exactly.
I know that I played Mortal Kombat 1 on the Genesis 3-button controller because I've never held a Genesis 6-button controller.
I think it had like just different controls, man. We just got around it somehow, dude. Like,
yeah. But
yeah.
no, I remember this was, freshman year. I went to my boarding school, and I had this roommate who lived not too far from the school. So like, he and I and another friend all said like, let's go to this guy's house for the weekend. And we did that. We had to sleep over that weekend just to get off the campus and stuff. And we rented Mortal Kombat, and we played it like all weekend with the blood code or whatever it was. We had a great time.
Dude.
That would have been 93.
I love all the characters. One time I was with a Japanese friend of mine, and we're looking at, we went to GameStop or something, and we look at Mortal Kombat, and then he's like, oh, is that character Chinese? And it dawned on me that the characters, they might have like ethnicities now. Like, I think, like,
yeah, like they filled in the backstory.
Yeah, Sub-Zero's Chinese, Scorpion's Japanese, and all that. But I think at the time, this was just Asian shit. They're on record saying that they really loved Big Trouble in Little China and all that kind of shit. And
who doesn't?
They were just throwing shit. They were just putting a bunch of Asian shit in the fucking blender and mix it with American comic books, and here you go. This is it. Like, so I just thought it was funny. It was like, I don't think a lot of Americans are really thinking about like nationalities with Mortal Kombat, but like that was his first question. Is Sub-Zero Chinese or something like that? The answer is yes, actually. Answer is actually yes.
The official answer was, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, dude.
Nobody's thought about that. They're ninjas, but it doesn't really. It's just, yeah.
They're all kind of culturally appropriate now, I think. They're all got it fleshed out. Also, the women characters are more dressed these days for the most part. They're not, they're not wearing lingerie. But so Mortal Kombat, even Mortal Kombat to a certain extent has gotten a little woke, which is good. But yeah, I mean, it's just great. Look at this look, man. It's awesome. Ready to move on to...
I'd be interested to do a little side-by-side of the Genesis version and the Super Nintendo version. But like, if they feel good to control, they feel good to control. And like, for me, I played on the Super Nintendo because I had made the shift over there, and it had all the buttons. So
the Genesis might have been worse in some ways, but it was just like Mortal Kombat was a Genesis game to me.
Didn't this get a 32X release?
It might have, or Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 or something.
Huh.
I remember that.
Yeah. Now, this is a weird thing, because like, I think about this now, and I don't think there's any way to legitimately purchase Mortal Kombat 2 in the modern era.
Not right now, but I feel like the 30th anniversary is coming up, and they're going to...
Oh, okay. Because, I'm not interested in Mortal Kombat 10 or 11 or whatever it is we're on now. But I would, even though I find the animation stilted, it's not to my liking, I still do have that bit of nostalgia for it. And I do appreciate the color pop and the babalities and all that. So, like, if they did re-release this on modern systems, I would say I'm definitely going to grab MK2.
This was like, again, like my gore game. Like we had like Altered Beast, again, I didn't really notice this at the time. By the way, if you held down right here, the body would drop.
So Jax just knocked Liu Kang up to the ceiling of spikes in the pit. That's what Andrew's reacting to.
Most people don't even realize that, I think, but yeah.
The corpse will come off the spikes if you hold down?
Yeah, he'll come down. So I mean, what was I saying? It's great games.
It's gore. It's
gore. So, yeah, I didn't notice it at the time. Didn't consider myself a horror kid or like a gore kid, but I did like bloody anime. I knew that. I knew that was the first anime I ever saw, and I was like, this is my shit. And this was my game. I love Street Fighter as well, but this was like...
Yeah, no, this is definitely a different
blood
vibe.
And gore and shit. Yeah, I just thought it was really cool. My parents would like restrict us from playing this shit, obviously. So, just great all around, man. Yeah. Great memories. All right, your number one?
All right. So wait, before we go on to the number one, I'll say my number 3 was Revenge of Shinobi. Number 2, Castle of Illusion. Honorable mention. Why can I never say the word? Went to Streets of Rage 2. And now we're ready for number 1.
Okay.
Here we go. Golden Axe. I love Golden Axe. I will play it and replay it until the end of time. It just feels good. It feels so good to play. And like, I love the arcade version. I love the Genesis version. The Genesis version is longer than the arcade version. It's got like an extra level.
Nice.
Now after many years, I could say like, all right, it's not that big a deal, the extra level. Like, it doesn't add all that much. But it's still cool. And I think this is another case of something we discussed another day with lo-fi audio sounding better to me. The audio on the Genesis obviously is not going to be as good as the PCB in the arcade version, but something about those sound effects, possibly just the constant exposure as a child, has really made them feel like home to me. I love those sounds. I love the lower quality sound of the Genesis more than I love the arcade version. And this is a game I played a whole lot in the arcade and I beat in the arcade. I could never get enough of this game. I thought it was fantastic. It was like, it's kind of like that peak fantasy stuff. You're riding dragons, you're wielding this giant axe, you're doing magic. I generally stick to Tyrus Flare because I love her dragon magic, and I'll just always save up all her magic so that I can have the big dragon head come in and burn everyone. Because why would I do anything else, honestly? So, and you can see like the classic artwork too for Golden Axe was like, again, that 70s Frank Frazetta, Boris Vallejo kind of vibe going. Conan the Barbarian, like it's all there. You got your Conan and Red Sonja going. You got your dwarf with an axe. Like it just plays on all of these classic tropes, and it does them all so well. I love the music too, and I love the goofy interstitials between the stages where like, oh, it turns out you were on the back of a turtle. Oh, it turns out you were actually flying on an eagle that whole time. Did you know that? and that's how you make your way to Death Adder or whatever. Or should I say Death equals Adder, which is for whatever reason how they wrote it on the title screens. And something I only learned recently, I decided to buy the Sega Vintage Classics, I think it's called. This was on the 360. There was a re-release or whatever from, I think it was M2, and it got a little more attention than the original Golden Axe that released on the 360. So it had some nice tweaks, and you could change the version. And in the Japanese version of Golden Axe, the arcade edition, there's a part where Axe Battler walks out and he attacks an enemy. In the Japanese arcade version, he chops off the dude's head and it flies at the screen, like in that Mode 7 Turtles in Time style. And I just was like, what the hell is happening here? This is amazing. But it was one of those things that was censored, I guess, for America because, maybe decapitation is not what we should be using to attract audiences. But yeah, it's definitely there. Like, that's what I was saying too about this with Mortal Kombat in the past. Just that's how we were. We were like ultra violent, and we wanted to play games that showed new and creative ways to like murder people, to completely destroy them and dismember them. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad that we're in an age where Animal Crossing sells millions and millions of copies now. I'd rather see something like that succeed over cutting people and maiming them. But at the time, that's what we wanted, man. That's what it was. What kind of ultra violence can you offer us? And yeah, if I had seen that as a kid, I would probably have loved Golden Axe even more.
Definitely.
I can never get enough of it. Like, I just play through it, and it's a quick game, and I'm not great at it. They have a rating system when you finish the game, and I'm usually like a C or something, but I don't really care. I'm having fun the whole way through. I really enjoy it.
Dude, I
And
know
it's co-op.
I'm a broken record here. I didn't grow up with this game, man. I wish I had. It looks cool. I'm sure I would have liked it. It just, I don't even know if I saw it in EGM or something. It was just not on my radar. Like this game in
this would have been this probably, I think this was in arcades in like 89. So
I don't, dude. The thing is,
maybe even 88 or earlier.
I wasn't going to arcades until maybe 92 at the earliest.
Yeah.
Like the whole arcade side scroller platformer, like I had missed that entirely. By the time I was in arcades, like kind of the fighting game boom was happening. I think.
And that's a huge factor. Like Street Fighter, as much as I love it, I have to admit, like, it kind of ruined the arcade for me. Because rather than exploring all these other cool games and different genres, I was like, well, I'm just going to get on Street Fighter and see who challenges me.
I know. It kind of like was just too good.
Yeah.
It looks cool. Dude, there are some toys from Storm Collectibles or something. They make the dragon that you can ride on, and all the other characters too. You should look this up.
I've seen them. They look really nice.
Really good.
I have like this general policy of tchotchkes and toys and things like that, where it's like, if it's going to cost me more than it would cost me to get this game, then I'm not going to buy it. But I will admire it.
I understand. I do buy some. There's a Mortal Kombat reptile I really want. It looks fucking sweet.
Sometimes I just say like, yeah, the toy store is where I keep my collection, and it rotates in stock.
Exactly.
I'll go in and look at all the stuff and be like, that's cool, and have to leave it there. I'm just like, where am I going to put it anyway?
I don't think I ever played this in arcade, man, either. Like the arcade version might have been a little before my time. I think I was aware of this game on Genesis, but I don't know. It just kind of passed me by.
I can remember this. I went to a day camp one summer, and like this kid on the bus was telling me that Golden Axe had come out for Sega Master System or whatever. And I was like, what? You're a liar. That's not true. And he's like, I saw it. It was at Toys R Us. And I was like, what did the title screen look like? As if he could tell me what the title screen looked like. That was like the ultimate defense, like, if you could tell me what the title screen looks like, you've definitely seen this game. But no, he I don't know. He said something about how like, well, there's an axe or whatever. You know how kids are.
Yeah, right.
And I didn't believe him, but eventually it did obviously come to the Genesis. And it showed up on Sega Master System, but I don't know when. And it was a really, really broken version on the Sega Master System.
What's the Japanese title for this? Do you know?
Oh, man. You know what? No, I don't know. I
Altered Beast is Juoki, which is
I can't remember.
Beastmaster record. The record of the Beastmaster.
Right. But I can't remember. I feel like it might do the same thing where like both names are visible. And so I never really registered what the Japanese one was.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think the American, there's like I think it's just two kanji. And I think one of them is like, I think it's like a war axe or something.
I'm going to look it up right now.
I'm trying to remember. Axe. I'm sorry to the audience who's listening to me like stammer, try to figure this out. But yeah,
we're going to figure it out.
It's just two kanji for that.
No, it's not Golden Axe. It's okay. Sen.
I think it was like
Sen
battle
Ono.
axe.
It's fight tatakao and axe Ono.
Okay, so yeah.
Which I don't know the reading for Ono, but it's Sen. That's definitely Sen from like Senso. We got a little bit of our Japanese stuff in here.
But yeah, it's not golden. It's definitely not gold.
No,
there's no and the axe is not gold in the game either. So
no, right. Yeah, that was to their credit, it's a good title, so
yeah.
But yeah, it probably should have at least, well, if they made it golden in the fucking cover and it's never golden in the game,
it's not even really gold. It's not even really gold in the cover.
I know. I'm just saying, like, if they really wanted to go all the way localizing it with that title, they have a few extra steps there.
But again, right? It's the like, does it make sense? No. Is it cool? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, name
Golden
some names
Axe.
just- it rolls off the tongue, man, for
It's
sure.
a cool name. That's a good name. I like it. I'm with it. Definitely. It's simple. But yeah, this game really, really did it for me and still does. I still play it on the regular. I just go back and I sometimes play the arcade version, sometimes play the Genesis version. I like them both a lot. The Genesis, since the Genesis version is longer, sometimes I'll play the arcade version instead to just go through it more quickly.
Okay.
The arcade version, it's it doesn't take long. I think it's only like 20 minutes or so.
Nice.
And you would think after all these years that I would be able to ace this game, but nah, man, I still get killed on the regular by skeletons and stuff, and they're a real pain.
That's how it happens, man.
It's fun. It's fun. And so if anybody's interested in Golden Axe, I would say on the Xbox, add the Sega Vintage Classics or Sega Vintage Collection version to your wish list, and when it goes on sale, and it often does, grab it. You'll also get to see the Japanese edition where the head gets lopped off and thrown at the screen.
Okay.
With some early 3D scaling.
That's fucking sick, dude.
Yeah.
All right, is that pretty much gonna do it for this episode? I can't
Yeah.
believe we made it to the end, man.
That's it. Yeah. We took some extra time on it. There's a lot to talk about with the Genesis. And of course we have the
ahead.
honorable mention.
Honorable mentions, yeah, I like to add that. I mean, I thought that we weren't going to have enough to talk about for this episode, and then now look at us.
Oh, you forget who I am.
Yeah, well, look at me too. I talk a lot as well. So,
Yeah.
all right, I guess it's going to do it, everybody. Thanks again for joining our Patreon, and let us know in the comments if you like this and what other stuff you'd like for us to do behind the paywall for season 2. And we'll check you later.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you.